everyone, and welcome to the 6th episode of The Inside Line. I'm your host, Gabbi Hall, digital content editor for Ski Racing Media, and I'm so excited to be back with you guys. If you're a regular listener, you know that our amazing sponsor, Team Ski Safe, is just the perfect gift for anyone this holiday season. I just got my bracelet, pink band with a silver clasp, and these Team Ski Safe bracelets are great for anyone involved in action sports like skiing, because they make it easier for first responders to treat you effectively in the event of an emergency. You know, I have my emergency contact information engraved on my bracelet, so shout out to my mom. And the unique ID on my bracelet gives first responders access to important medical information I have loaded into Team Ski Safe system. So Team Ski Safe is the official medical bracelet of not only this show, but WiSP Sports. And you can find more information about the bracelet and the great range of colors and styles by visiting their website at teamskisafe.com. And when you order your bracelet, remember to mention the Inside Line. So we're going to dive right into everything that's gone down in the last couple weeks. You know, technically, the World Cup season has been here for over a month, but it really started in earnest around Thanksgiving. It's been nonstop since then. We had Killington, we had Lake Louise, and we have a lot to break down about those venues. I'm going to be honest with you. You're going to hear one name a lot in this episode, Mikaela Shiffrin. She has had a hell of a couple of weeks. It's been really incredible to watch. So we're going to dive right into that. And we're going to start with her story at Killington. So there were roughly 34,000 spectators at the Vermont venue Thanksgiving weekend. And, you know, you can take that with a grain of salt. I mean, PR tends to paint a very rosy picture of how many attendees there were. You know, that said, I mean, it was an incredibly well-attended event. It definitely felt busier than last year, where they estimated around 30,000 spectators. So I definitely think there was an increase from last season. And it was, you know, just like last year, an amazing ambiance. There was 2 days of women's races, slalom and giant slalom. And before the races even kicked off, there was a press conference with a few U.S. athletes, including Racy Stiegler. You know, we had a great episode with her, episode 5. So if you guys haven't listened to that, definitely go take a listen and get to know Racy. But we're going to talk about Mikaela Shiffrin and this press conference where we actually had a special guest, Sofia Goggia of Italy. And it was great to kind of kick off the event that way and get a sense of how they were feeling. And, you know, I don't want to speak for Mikaela Shiffrin, obviously, but I think that Killington is one of the most high-pressure races for her because it's a home race. I mean, a lot of her family was there, including her now famous Nana, who you've probably seen. And on top of that, it was a press palooza. I mean, easily one of the busiest press areas I'm in all year, and everyone wants access to her. So while at the press conference, I asked Mikaela and Sofia, you know, how they're handling the pressure of the Olympic season and these demands that are being put on them by media and sponsors to have access to them. And it was interesting because they both started off their answers saying this was a topic they had actually been discussing, you know, earlier in the week. So it's something that's come up for them. And I think Sofia expressed it in a really great way. She said they, who is presumably, you know, press and sponsors and fans, you know, she said they want us to be at a level of their expectations. And she also continued to say that you have to remember that, you know, before being a skier, you know, they're just 20-something girls. I mean, they're both in their early 20s, and they have to deliberately make space in their private lives to be normal people. Sofia Goggia said in the press conference, you know, you want the Shiffrin and the Goggia, and before this, we are Mikaela and Sofia, and we exist before the skiers. And so she really made a great point about saying that, you know, while the press sort of defines them as these World Cup skiers and World Cup winners, there's so much more to the person off of the slopes and outside of the Alpine World Cup circuit. So I just thought it was an interesting way that Goggia presented that situation. And it definitely sounds like they make a big effort to compartmentalize their lives to make everything fit. And I think you'd have to, particularly in an Olympic season, because it's not just people like me who cover the sport year round and, you know, outside of Olympic seasons that want to talk to them this year. You know, it's everyone. It's the New Yorker. You may have seen the Mikaela Shiffrin article that came out from them. You know, it's the USA Today. It's the Boston Globe. It's the New York Times. And so there's just this incredible demand on those athletes to do interviews and give up so much of themselves. And, you know, at the end of the day, they still have to train, they have to race, and they still have to perform at an elite level. And so understandably, that can get very hard to balance. And there's a reason you can't always get access to these athletes. And I don't mean to bore you guys with this information, but I'm telling you this because I think it's important to humanize these ladies. They aren't robotic. They aren't just athletes. They're people. And so I just wanted to kind of share what they had to say about that. I don't want to get too far away from our race coverage, so I'm going to refocus into Killington. But I just kind of wanted to share that kind of interesting note from the first press conference. So racing kicked off with the giant slalom. Victoria Ravensburg of Germany took her second one of the season. Mikaela Shiffrin got second place, which was really pleasing for the hometown crowd. And Manuela Moog of Italy took third. It was actually nearly an identical podium to Solden, except Tessa Worley of France was on the podium in Solden instead of Shiffrin. But, it's good to see those girls skiing consistently well. I think Manuela Moog in particular is an interesting one to watch because she is an older athlete. I believe I said that on the last episode. But she's one of the older athletes on the circuit, and she's really having a resurgence. So I just think keep an eye on her. And I'm hoping to talk with her a little bit about how the young athletes that she's training with are pushing her and helping her kind of not come back a little bit, but experience a little bit of a rebirth and get kind of reinvigorated as an athlete. And then the second day, I think, is the big story because it was the slalom, and Shiffrin was looking to defend her win from the 2016 slalom, which she did. She did it in flying colors. She won by over a second and a half, a true Schiff win style. I don't know if you guys read my coverage from the event, but Mikaela Shiff win is the headline I used last year, so I use it again this year. It's always fun. I think it's one of my better headlines. But, being at the race when Mikaela Shiffrin wins is truly insane. I mean, the crowd gets so loud. You can barely hear yourself think over like the screaming and the bells ringing and everything that's going on. And everyone's eyes are glued to the hill and the monitors. And it reminds me a lot of the big crowds at Solden or Schladming or other big World Cups that I've been to. I mean, everyone's not so excited for Mikaela Shiffrin because it's not a race in the U.S., but just the level of excitement and passion for the sport is really incredible. The intensity is palpable, and it didn't just feel this way for me. What I want to do is play for you what Mikaela had to say about the press conference over the weekend about how incredible these East Coast fans are.
I think we all know that the East Coast fans are just incredible, and it's so cool that we're having World Cups back here now. And last year and this season, last year everybody was sort of surprised at how big of a showing there was, how loud the crowd was, and this year everybody expected it. But it's still such a nice feeling, especially for me, to come into the finish and I can hear everybody screaming, and they're just so supportive. And I actually got a message on Instagram, a direct message from a girl who said, like, we're not here to watch you win. We're here to support you. We're just here to watch ski racing. We're so excited. So I hope you don't feel pressure from us. And I read this message. I was like, that made me feel so much better. So to the fans out there who are writing direct messages, I do read them, and thank you. Just having the realization that it's not about what I do or what I don't do, but just sort of sharing ski racing with everybody here is incredible.
So, like I said, Mikaela Shiffrin won the slalom. Petra Vlhova of Slovakia was second, just over a second and a half behind her, actually. And I think, as I mentioned when we talked about Levy in the last episode, there's going to be this interesting dynamic between Shiffrin and Vlhova, I think, as they go for the slalom globe. And so it'll be exciting to see that rivalry play out. And then Bernadette Shields earned her first podium of the season, getting third place. And, she's had a lot of good races in the U.S. She had a podium at Squaw Valley last season. So the U.S. holds a special place in her heart. And I think she's one to watch as well. I just really like her. I think she's a sweetheart. And so keep an eye on her. She is Marlee Shields' younger sister, so it's sort of in her blood to do well, and I think we'll see big things from her. And the most exciting way to end this segment on Killington is to let you know that it is returning, planning to return next year. Of course, it has to be confirmed at the FIS meetings, but they are planning to be back November 23rd through 25th in 2018. So keep your eyes peeled. If you want to go next year, just make a plan now. Thanksgiving weekend is always tough for travel. So, just keep it on your radar. And those were actually the final tech races for a few weeks. I mean, we're in a bit of a break now. The women don't get to race a GS until Courchevel in a couple weeks, and the next slalom is in Lands after Christmas. So we're kind of in this speed zone right now, and the ladies are going to be headed to St. Moritz this week. And before they do those Super Gs, they were in Lake Louise this past week, and I was actually up there with them. I flew up to Lake Louise, which is about 2 hours west of Calgary in Canada. It's a pretty remote venue, also insanely beautiful. If you ever get the opportunity to go, it's stunning. And if you're interested in seeing photos, I obviously posted a lot of them to Instagram, so go ahead and follow me. You can just search for me, Hall_Gabbi. I should pop up. But while we were there were 2 downhill races and a Super G. And oh my goodness, guys, so much happened while we were there. There were so many things, in fact, that I wasn't sure how to take you through the excitement of the weekend. But I think we should start with Lindsey Vonn because she's so closely associated with this venue. I believe I've mentioned this before on the show, but Lake Louise is sometimes called Lake Lindsey because Vonn has had so much success there over the years. She's had 18 wins, 14 in downhill. And after the downhill runs, I talked to her a little bit, the training runs, and she had this to say about why she thinks this hill has been so good to her over the years.
I've had a good feeling here. I think some courses you show up and you feel a little bit lost and it takes you a while to kind of get into it. But Lake Louise, I always, since I showed up the first time when I was 17, I was like, this is my place. This is where I can ski well, and I just know where I can make speed and where I need to make sure I'm online, and I just have a good understanding for the course.
So, unfortunately, things didn't play out like she wanted to. She crashed so hard in the first downhill. It was right towards the bottom. She went straight into the B net, and it was brutal. I mean, the way she tweaked her knee, I was very surprised and happy to see her ski down on her own. I did not think that was how it was going to end. And then the next 2 days of racing, the downhill and the Super G, she didn't seem quite herself on her skis. She was in the top 15 in the second downhill, and then she fell in the Super G. Her skis just slid out from under her. It didn't seem to be a situation with her knee. I did see her checking her skis in the finish area after she slid in the Super G, so I'm not sure if that was an equipment-related issue or not, but it didn't seem like a knee issue necessarily. Now, I have no doubt that she's currently in Europe getting ready for the St. Moritz races, shaking it all off and getting ready for Super G. And she might even be doing her cheese therapy. And it's not a Liz Lemon, the 30 Rock character thing where she's working on her night cheese. I hope some of you understand that reference. It's one of my favorite shows. But it's actually something she does with her physio to her knee, which she explained to me after inspection one day. And I think this is a pretty interesting therapy.
I'm just trying to get the swelling down. Definitely my meniscus took a pretty big hit on Friday. And after yesterday, it was a little bit more angry with me. But I did some Topfen therapy. It's like a cheese that they use in Austria. And I put some ice over it, and it kind of supposed to suck out all the swelling. I've used it in some injuries in the past, and it seems to work pretty well.
So I hope LV is recovering well. Of course, I think the real story at Lake Louise was Mikaela Shiffrin. Who else? Because she won her first downhill race. And I told you we'd be talking about her a lot in this episode because she's just really been on a roll lately. So she won on the second day of downhill after earning her first podium the day before. And these are actually only her third and fourth World Cup downhill starts of her career. She raced the downhills in Lake Louise last season. And the day she won was a very bizarre day because all the electricity went out at the ski area. There was a fire at a power plant substation nearby, and the chairlifts just stopped. Everything shut down. And the timing was rough because it was around 10 a.m. local time when all the athletes were headed to inspection. So a ton of them, including Lindsey and Mikaela, got stuck on a chairlift for close to an hour. And they had to bring in the backup power source for the chairlifts to run the chairlift long enough to get everyone off of it and evacuate. And it was interesting. I was out shooting B-roll for NBC when it happened, and I caught some video of Ravensburg being helped off the lift. She had just loaded, so she wasn't that far off the ground. She was actually able to hop off instead of waiting for the lift to start running. If you are interested in seeing that video, I did tweet it, so I'm going to put a link below this podcast. Feel free to go watch that. So she got off the lift pretty quickly. But long story short, they actually ended up being able to save the race because they use generators to run things like timing, and then they use snowcats actually to transport everyone up to the course for inspection and for their race runs. I also tweeted a video of that as it was happening, and I'll put a link to that below the podcast. But it was basically like a snowcat T-bar, so they had attached ropes to the back of the snowcat with like wood blocks that the athletes could sit on, kind of, and it would pull them up behind the snowcat. And I heard it took about 20 minutes to get up, so it's a long time to be pulled behind a snowcat before the race. But Shiffrin overcame that and won. And I think, she was stunned above anyone else. I mean, she was standing in the leader box, and the camera would pan to her, and you could tell she was just surprised that she was there. But I think, people who have followed her career knew she was capable of this. I don't know that anyone necessarily thought it would come so soon, but it did. And I think one of the things that played to her advantage was the shortened course. So because of the power outage, they lowered the start of the women's race to the men's Super G start. And Mikaela actually felt like that played to her advantage. And I asked her about that in the finish area, which I'll play that clip for you now so you can hear what she had to say about what worked for her to get this win.
Shortening the distance definitely was an advantage towards me because the top section it's flat, I'm not as good up there. But from where we started, most of the way down, it's fairly technical, and I felt really good about that yesterday, so I took even a little bit more risk today, and it paid off just barely, and that was really cool. But I also had really good light. Some of those other girls had fog, and it was really dark as well. So yeah, I mean, I definitely know that I was lucky yesterday and today, but I skied well and I took some risk, and it was really fun.
And this win, once again, has brought up the idea of her being a multi-event medal threat this year at the Olympics in South Korea. And Steve Perino, he's a former ski racing writer. He's now an NBC analyst. You've probably seen his face. He does a lot of the reporting in the start area at these World Cups. And he tweeted this. After Mikaela Shiffrin won today, I kept hearing, quote unquote, 5-medal threat for the Olympics in 2018. But that ain't right. What about the team event? ? Set for 6. So Steve is technically correct. If the U.S. fields a team and Shiffrin is a part of that team for the team event at the Olympics, she could win 6 medals. For those of you who aren't familiar, the team event is a 4-person squad. They run a parallel paneled slalom course, and they do it in rounds of elimination, and that'll be at the Olympics this year. So if Shiffrin were to race the team event, the downhill, the Super G, the slalom, the giant slalom, and the alpine combined, she is technically a 6-medal threat. But here's what I want to kind of caveat that statement with, because Mikaela has also never podiumed in a World Cup Super G. That's not to say that she can't or won't this season. I'm just saying that as of right now, she has never had a medal level finish in that discipline. And above all else, I think the chances of walking away with 6 medals are slim because she herself isn't even sure she'll race in more than 3 or 4 disciplines. Here's what she actually had to say about her plans for the Olympic Games and what events she plans to compete in.
It's not a 100% no, but I I think skiing in 5 events is maybe a little bit ambitious. There's always the possibility because the speed events come second, so I'll have slalom and GS out of the way, but my priority is still giant slalom and slalom, then the combined, then the Super G, and downhill. I mean, I don't know. I'm not under the impression that I can just go in and win downhills now. Maybe on courses where I have a little experience, and if I have some luck with the lighting and this and that, it can help, but I certainly don't expect to be winning every downhill from here on out. So long story short, probably no.
So like I said, I think it's important to note that there's potential for 6 medals. Mikaela seems to be trying pretty hard to keep expectations and her schedule reasonable. And I think she has to weigh the risk of getting too exhausted at the games and not being able to finish the World Cup season strong. I mean, she's already leading in the overall standings. She's going to be going for her 2nd overall title for the entirety of the season. And I mean, let's be honest, how much would it stink if she got hurt racing the team event at the Olympics and then lost the overall title? And she's going to have a long career, and I think there may be I think there will be other opportunities for her to be a 6 medal threat. So I don't know if she has to necessarily do it this time around. She's a young athlete; she's 22, and she's got a lot of time to be a 6 medal threat. And so maybe it's for the best that she's going to focus, particularly on tech. Maybe do Super G Alpine combined, and she said downhill's kind of 5th on her list. And the other big point I want to make is that the U.S. has a really strong and large speed squad this year. I mean, Jackie Wiles, who was our first ever guest on the show, had a 5th place finish in one of the downhills. And Stacey Cook and Breezy Johnson also had solid results this weekend. So I think with the women's U.S. speed team being so strong, we have to consider the fact that at an Olympic Games, they can't start 8 people like they did at Lake Louise. The team will be 4 people, and the coaches and everyone will have to decide what makes the most sense and what gives them the best opportunities for winning medals. Because like Tiger Shaw in Killington said, for those of you who don't know, Tiger Shaw is the CEO of U.S. Ski and Snowboard. He said that for an athlete, the overall title is a big deal, but as an organization, they are measured on medal counts at the Olympics. So some of those decisions will be made on who has the best opportunity to medal. It may be Mikaela Shiffrin, but it may also be someone else. So I think you just have to consider how many athletes are in play, particularly in the speed events. And so now that I've given you all my caveats, my big conclusion is that, my approach is always to hope for the best, and you always want these spectacular things to happen. But I keep a healthy level of skepticism always in the back of my mind to keep things realistic. And I can't end this Lake Louise segment without talking about the 2 other winners in Lake Louise. Mikaela Shiffrin was not the only one who won. Connie Huetter of Austria won the first downhill, and then Tina Weirather won the Super G on the final day. So Huetter is she's a really strong Austrian athlete, and this was her first race back after her ACL injury last January, so less than a year, and she comes back and absolutely dominates on a super snowy day. I mean, very flat light. It was a tough win, and it was also an emotional win for her. I mean, her father was there, and right before I interviewed her, they had a big hug, and she was in tears. I mean, it was clearly a very emotional moment. So I wanted to share a short clip of our interview afterwards with you guys. We're in the finish area, so you may hear some ambient noise, but she talked about the win and having her dad on the road and what that means for her as an athlete.
You are kind of 1 year out from an injury and you're coming back with a win. What's going through your head right now?
Really, nothing. It's unbelievable for me because, a comeback is something special, and that comeback is, I don't know, what should I say? It's so weird. I don't know. I was in the start gate and I was confident, but I don't know. It's fast enough for these girls. So today it was, and tomorrow is a new day, but now I'm super happy and try to push it again tomorrow.
And I see that your dad is here at the venue. What does it mean to have him here and win in front of him?
It's nice that I have him here for sure. It's something special and apart from my home, and that's good. And we're talking about different things and not only skiing. When we stay 3 weeks together and all the time is skiing, so it's good to have another person to speak about different things. And yeah, it's nice that he's here.
And then after Connie won, 2 days later, Tina Weirather won the Super G race. She's from Liechtenstein. She's such a sweetheart. Really all these ladies are. You'll probably hear me say that a lot this season. I really enjoy talking to them and celebrating their successes, and it's very cool. So she's from a small country, no surprise. So it's a small team, and she actually trains with the Swiss team. And so I was curious about her relationship with the Swiss athletes, and particularly Lara Gut, who was second that day, actually. And Tina had some interesting things to say about her own competition style and why she actually doesn't like competing against people.
And I've always wondered, you and Lara seem like pretty good friends. What's your relationship like?
Well, we're for sure competitors, and we like those battles because, like, the last 2 years, she was beating me by a couple hundreds. Today, I beat her by a couple hundreds, and I'm sure we're both like really. We both want to be faster, but also we can lose, And then when you're a couple hundreds back, of course, you're a bit mad at yourself, but then you really congratulate her from the heart. And I think it's really important to have those like natural and honest competitors. Yeah.
And while you're competitors, I mean, is it nice to have friends on the circuit? Liechtenstein doesn't have a large team, so I know you're relatively close with the Swiss team.
Yes, I train with the Swiss, and I have really good friends, not just from my team, but also from other teams, and that's really important because we're on the road for so many days a year that you would be so lonely if you wouldn't have friends. And also, I'm not the person who is more like in competition with others, but more with myself, because I used to play tennis when I was younger, and I always hated to play against someone and like play the shots that the other one didn't like, and I always preferred skiing where I could like have my battle with the hill, and then in the finish I see how fast the other was, but I don't have to fight anyone else.
So unfortunately, I have to close out this episode with a little bit of bad news. I hate having to report on injuries, but Marie-Michelle Gagnon, who was previously a guest on the show, one of our early episodes, she crashed in the training runs at Lake Louise. And at first, they didn't think the injuries were so bad. She had dislocated her shoulder, which is a recurring injury for her. And sort of the funny story going around at the time was that she actually popped it back in herself before the medical team could attend to her. They said in the team captains, the medical report said that she was approached by the medical staff, and she said 1 second, and she like popped her shoulder back in. She did have some various like lacerations, minor cuts and bruises, but they didn't think it was a season-ending injury. And then in the days after, she felt like something was wrong. She got the MRI and found out she tore her ACL. So that's a season-ending injury, which is a huge bummer. You may remember from the episode where I interviewed her, she was really focused on Alpine combined this year. It's where she had the most potential to grab an Olympic medal. Just an all-around bummer, another injury on the World Cup. I hope she gets well soon, and I can't wait to see her back on the circuit. And that is all of our news for this week, you guys. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. We tried something a little bit different to tell you guys a little bit more of a story. Not one big interview, but I promise we'll be back with some big interviews as the season proceeds. If you guys are loving this podcast, please leave a 5-star review of WiSP Sports Radio on iTunes. I also welcome any ideas for guests or issues you'd like to see discussed on this podcast. Feel free to leave a comment below. Tweet me at Hall_Gabbi. Find me on Facebook. I am totally open to suggestions. More episodes of The Inside Line can be found at wisports.com, skiracing.com, and just about anywhere you listen to podcasts, including iTunes, the Google Play Store, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify. Just search for WiSP Sports Radio. With over 700 episodes across 30 unique shows and a global audience of 1.5 million, WiSP Sports Radio is the world's largest network of podcasts for women in sports. I'm going to be back in 2 weeks' time after I've done a few more trips. I'm going to be headed to Val d'Isère and Courchevel in the next couple weeks. The ladies are racing in St. Moritz. We are going to have a lot to talk about in the next episode, and I think we're going to have some exciting guests, which I can't share with you now, but I promise we'll tease them on social as soon as they're confirmed. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys, and I will talk to you in a couple weeks.